At some point, most families realize the question isn't whether something is changing, it's what happens next. And that's usually the moment people start asking, what are the actual living options if my parents can't stay exactly where they are anymore? So in this video, I want to walk you through the 4 paths families usually look at first when parents begin needing more support. Because once you understand what the options actually are, this situation becomes much easier to think through without pressure. In the last video, we talked about how to recognize whether independence at home is starting to change. And once families begin noticing those shifts, the next step usually isn't making a decision right away. It's understanding what choices even exist. Because most people don't realize how many different ways this can look, or you're overwhelmed by how many ways this can look. If you're new here, hi, I'm Chris Rainwaters, your favorite real estate witch and a licensed realtor here in Southern California. And a big part of my job isn't helping people buy or sell homes. It's helping families navigate the transitions that happen around those homes. And aging parents is one of the biggest. This is video 4 in an 8-part series. So if you haven't watched the earlier videos yet, I really recommend starting at the beginning because everything we're covering builds on the piece before it. It can be found in the playlist in the description. All right, let's look at what our options usually are. Option 1, staying in the home with support. For many families, the best option at first is actually staying right where they are, but adding support around them. That support can look like small safety upgrades, things like grab bars and better lighting, removing tripping hazards, or bringing in help with things like cleaning, yard work, meals, transportation, or finances. Sometimes families also create simple check-in routines, so someone is keeping an eye on how things are going day to day. And what surprises a lot of people is how often small adjustments like this can extend independence much longer than expected. Because sometimes the issue isn't the person, it's just the environment around them. Quick question, if you've already made some adjustments at your parents' home, what was the first thing you changed? Or if you're just starting to think about this, what feels most doable to start with? Drop it in the comments because the most useful information usually comes from the people who've already been through it or have been actively thinking about it. Option 2, moving closer but staying independent. Another option families look at is keeping independence the same, but changing the location. That might mean downsizing into something easier to maintain, moving closer to family, or choosing a home that's designed with accessibility in mind. Sometimes that includes 55+ communities or senior-focused neighborhoods that make daily life simpler and more connected. Because sometimes the goal isn't outside care yet, it's just proximity. It's making support easier when it becomes necessary and making sure help isn't an hour away when something dramatic changes. If you're starting to explore whether a 55+ community might make sense for your parents, I actually did make a short series that walks through how those communities work, what the lifestyle looks like, and what families usually want to consider before making that move. I'll link it below so you can watch it after this. Option 3 is living together or multi-generational housing. For some families, the solution is bringing parents closer in a much more direct way. That can look like moving into the same home, or adding an ADU or casita, or converting an existing space, or choosing a property designed for multi-generational living. And this can be a really beautiful option because it creates closeness and flexibility. And sometimes it allows families to support each other in ways that wouldn't be possible otherwise. But it's also one of the options where expectations matter the most. Because if roles and boundaries aren't talked about ahead of time, they usually get defined in real time. And real time is rarely the easiest moment to figure out that kind of stuff. Multi-generational living. I want to know, is this something that your family has actually talked or dreamed about? Or is this the option that nobody brings up because everybody's afraid of what yes or no might actually mean? There's no wrong answer here, but there might be an unspoken one. Comment your thoughts. I want to know what came up for you. And if multi-generational living is something that your family is starting to explore, I made a video that walks through why more families are moving back together, what types of homes tend to support that setup best, and what options exist right here in North County, San Diego. I'll link that in a pinned comment so that you can watch it after this one. Option 4, assisted living or higher levels of care. And then there are situations where more structured support becomes necessary. That's where options like assisted living, memory care, or skilled nursing come into the conversation. And I know this is the part families often really don't want to think about yet, but one of the most helpful things you can do is understand what these environments look like before you actually need them, because decisions made calmly are very different from decisions made in a crisis, and knowing what exists gives families more choice later, not less. Now, there isn't one right answer here. Different families make different decisions depending on health, finances, relationships, location, and what everyone is realistically able to give. But understanding these options early gives you something really important: time. And time usually means flexibility. So before we get into the financial piece, out of the 4 options we just walked through, which one do you keep circling back to? And which one does nobody want to talk about? Tell me in the comments, because those 2 answers together usually tell you a lot about where you actually are in this conversation. All right, here we go. Once families really begin looking at these living options, there's another question that shows up almost immediately. If you give a mouse a cookie, you know what I mean? How is all of this actually going to be paid for? And for families whose parents own a home, what role does the house play in making these decisions possible? So in the next video, we're gonna walk through how finances and the home itself shape what options are realistically available moving forward. If you're in Southern California and want help thinking through all of this, the link to schedule a consult with me is in the description, and the next video in this series is right here. I'll see you in the next one, but hopefully sooner.